Hello, and welcome back to the Alpha Male Podcast, where we get together in this podcasting tribe and talk about what it means to be an alpha. Today we're going to be discussing a simple but powerful truth that I think you'll find is important to general manliness. It's also important to set you apart as an alpha male. Being able to do this and realizing this truth. To find out what that truth is, stay tuned. We'll roll into the bio and into the main topic. If you want to skip the bio, you can skip to about 4 minutes in. That should be pretty close. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review of the podcast. Hello and welcome back to Gunfighter Life, my fellow gunfighters, professional gunfighters, semi-pro gunfighters, aspiring gunfighters. I hope that all is well in your life. As always, I am your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I am a Christian. This podcast comes at gunfighting the right way from a Judeo-Christian worldview and values. If you don't like it, you can either deal with it or turn it off and listen to something else. But you would miss out on today's episode. I've been thinking on this episode for a while, and it's kind of gone through a metamorphosis in my head, but I think the final title is going to be something like Balancing Skill and Stuff. Because you see, I think both are important, and you can get really skewed one way or another. You could be the guy that wants the next, latest, greatest, super fancy AR with all the bells and whistles and thermo sights and red dot with a magnifier, and a red laser and a green laser and an IR laser, and multi-position collapsible rotating bipod. It never goes out and shoots it, never gets any formal training, never goes to any competition. First and foremost, I am a Christian. Or you can be the guy with a single shot, first and foremost in my life, the greatest of all the commandments. Rifled muzzleloader that thinks he can stand toe-to-toe with anybody with an AR. You can get skewed on one side of that balance or the other. Today's episode will be, where is that balance? I don't apologize for that. Before we get into the actual episode, though, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, leave a review of the podcast. If you a little bit about my background. In addition to that, feel free to share this with somebody you think would find it beneficial. I've been to war. If you want to find out more, you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com. Instead of plugging all the different stuff, go to goodshepherdtraining.com. You can get a hold of me on there. You can check out more visual stuff on there, pictures. I also serve contact law enforcement. I work different things as a police officer in LAPD. With that, guys, get into a little bit of the bio. If you want to skip it, you can generally skip to around 4.5 minutes in. That should bring you, if not into, pretty close to the main body. Made it through some nasty places and times overseas and some dangerous streets in the States. Not because I'm better than any of the men that didn't, but because God chose to have mercy and grace on me. To God be the glory. Also served as a private contractor for the U.S. government. See, for an agency I won't specify. By God's grace, He got me through all that. In addition to that, I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember, both rifle and pistol. Mostly pistol are most of my competition and championship wins. But I have also competed in, muzzle loader, archery, shotgun, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've been very blessed with those talents, and I try and use them and multiply them. I've done quite a bit of hunting and outdoor, I guess we'd say, survival-type activities, hunting and fishing all over this beautiful country. I have been a professional hunter and guide. Not many people today can see they've been a professional exotic and big game hunter of things like bison and exotic animals, but I have been one, and I'm very blessed for that. I've also gone out into the wilderness, by God's grace, with a Bible and a shotgun, and not just survived, but thrived. Also a professional firearms instructor. For the United States Marine Corps, I was an urban warfare and desert warfare instructor under a Mojave Viper. I'm also a FBI certified firearms instructor and have been for a lot of years. I'm certified by some other 3-letter government agency. NRA certified instructor. And I have taught at one of the big name firearms shooting academies in the country. So I've been very blessed to win many competitions and be a shooting instructor for military, law enforcement, and civilians. I have served as a commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a fairly large metropolitan area. Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. With that, guys, let's roll into today's topic, that simple but powerful truth. And that simple but powerful truth is this: you can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. And that may sound simple, and it is, but that doesn't make it easy. A lot of simple things in life are powerful and not easy. Let me try and verbalize this in an easy to understand way, an easy to visualize way. It's easy for me to tell you how to bench press 400 pounds. You take 400 pounds worth of weights plus the bar on a standard bench press. You lift the weights off the rack, you lower them till they touch your chest, you extend your arms again, then you re-rack the weights. Ta-da! You just bench press 400 pounds. That's simple to explain, and it's simple, but it's not easy. Likewise, it's easy for me to tell you how to run a marathon. You probably already know how to run, so I would say run for 26 point something miles. Don't stop, just keep running till you get to the finish line. Pretty simple, not easy. You can clearly see the difference there. Now, this simple but powerful truth, I'd like to tell you that I've known it my whole life, but the reality is that this came to me late in life. I think early in my life I wasted a lot of time trying to control what other people did. And this came to me, and I'm not going to say any names, but it came to me years ago, later in life probably than it should have. But somebody really screwed me over in life, and I don't say that like a lot of things in life are my fault, a lot of the mistakes in life are my fault, but this is something that somebody really was doing that was wrong to me. And I so was getting, it just was literally wrecking havoc in my life. And I tried to get him to do the right thing, tried to get him to do this thing and that thing. And then I realized by God's grace, by His wisdom, that you can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. And that was a major paradigm shift in my life. I mean, a major turning point. And I wanted to share that with you guys today. You see, in the Bible, you're probably familiar, even if you're listening to this and you're not a Christian, you're probably familiar with Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And Peter comes to him afterwards, and Peter says to Jesus, "What do we do about this one who betrayed you?" And Jesus, He says to him, "What is that to you? You follow me." So simple, so powerful. What about the rest of the world? What about the other people who are sinning? What is that to you? You follow me. You do the right thing. You follow Christ. You follow that example. You do that. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You follow Christ. It also reminds me of the verse where Jesus says, likewise, the verse where Jesus says, you worry about the speck that's in your brother's eyes, but you ignore the plank that is in your own eye. You follow Christ. You do the right thing. You can't control what other people do. Other people are gonna sin. Other people are gonna do wrong. Some people are even gonna do you wrong. But just because they do you wrong, that doesn't mean that you can do wrong in return. You can't control what they do, but you can control what you do. The rest of the world might do that. The rest of the world might be petty and make excuses while they're doing the wrong thing. They're doing the wrong thing because somebody else is doing the wrong thing. This is not the Average Man podcast. This is the Alpha Male podcast. And if you want to be an alpha male, you got to be better. You got to rise above it. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. You can't control what other people say, but you can control what you say. And nobody's perfect at it. I'm not perfect. The Bible also says no man can tame the tongue. But you can attempt to control what you say most of the time.
You can't be perfect in speech, obviously, but you can control what you say. When you learn to control what you say, you can even, believe it or not, when you become an alpha, when you get to this point, you can even control your thoughts. You can even realize right off the bat that this thought's not good, ignore it. Think about something else. That's an alpha male skill. That's the wisdom of God. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. Now, I don't want to get too much in detail, but recently, again, this is years later, just very recently, I was getting persecuted again. I recently got persecuted again. Like I said, I screw up plenty of things in my life that are my fault. But this, literally, I was doing my best interpretation to be just and fair and do the right thing. I was literally told, you're going to treat this person unfairly and persecute them, and I literally didn't do that. I refused to do that. I tried to the best of my ability treat everyone fairly and be honest and upright and truthful and just. And I got screwed for it. Somebody literally persecuted me for it and screwed me over for it. So what? Tough. That's life. It had major consequences in my life. You know what? I looked that person in the eye and told them that I forgave them. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. It's easy to make excuses. It's easy to say, well, yeah, but this person did this to me, so I'm going to do that to them. That's being petty. For it is written, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. If you're familiar with much of Christianity at all, you may be familiar with the second most important of all the commandments, as Jesus says, to love your neighbor as yourself. Where he's quoting Old Testament there. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, that's a quote from the Torah, and it says, you shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It also says later in that chapter, the stranger who dwells among you shall be as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself. As it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. You don't try and do what God's job is. You do what God tells you to do. Like Jesus told Peter so simply, what is that to you? You follow me. It's called the straight and narrow path. Jesus himself says, narrow and difficult is the way, and there are few who find it. Don't worry about what the average man is doing. The average man may watch 8 hours of TV a day. That's not okay for you to do it. Just because the average man does it. Just because it's normal doesn't make it okay for you. The average American man might be overweight. So what? Just because the average American man is overweight, you're supposed to be an alpha male. If you're listening to this, you likely hear the voice in the call. You hear a calling to be more, to be an alpha. Who cares what everybody else is? You be the best man that God's calling you to be. To he who has more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. That's what Jesus says. And I want you to have that abundant life. I want more for you than to be petty, than to do wrong because everybody else is doing wrong. Likely you remember this saying when you were a kid and it probably drove you crazy, but there's wisdom in it. If everybody else was jumping off a bridge, would you do it? No, right? Because it's stupid. Just because everybody else does something stupid doesn't give you the excuse to act stupidly, to act foolishly. Don't ever want to fit in so bad that you do the wrong thing to fit in. That's not being an alpha. That's literally being a beta. That's being a follower. That's being controlled by others instead of being a leader. Don't ever want to fit in so bad that you're willing to do the wrong thing. Sometimes doing the right thing gets you persecuted. Sometimes it gets you spit on. Sometimes it gets you crucified. Ask Christ. Literally, figuratively, whatever. Who cares? You're called to do the right thing and be an alpha and stand up and be more. Sometimes when you stand up above, people try and drag you down and pull you down. So what? Nobody said being alpha was going to be an easy thing. This is not the Easy Life podcast. I care about you guys too much to lie to you and tell you it's always going to be easy. You don't go to the gym and work out because it's easy. You work out to make it hard. If it was always easy, you're not going to grow big and strong and have muscles. You literally grow stronger by giving your body adversity, by pushing it through hard times. Forge yourself as a man like that. Forge your character as a man like that. Many times in the Bible, God calls a remnant, a small portion, to be set out, to be set apart, to be different. Are you called to be an alpha? Are you called to be different? What if Noah had said, well, everybody else isn't building an ark, I'm just not going to build one either. I'm just going to be like everybody else. Nobody else seems to be worried about this flood, I'm not going to either. So I guess I'd say stop wasting your life worrying and trying to control what other people do and spend more time trying to be the man that you're supposed to be. I remember when I was young in life and I would have a crush on a girl, this girl, that girl, and I would think if she was only like this, if she would only just do these or things or that things, if she would only treat me this way, it would be great. But you know what? That's not the way it works. You can't control what that woman is, and if she's not that, she's probably not the one you're supposed to be with. I don't fully understand women. I am the very first to admit that. But I do understand that you can waste a lot of your life trying to wish a woman or somebody that you really care about was a certain way, and if they're not changing, if they're not willing to change, if that's not the person they are, you can't control what they do, but you can control what you do. I'm not telling you not to love another person. I'm not telling you not to care about another person or try and help another person. I'm saying don't use other people's weakness as an excuse for you to be weak. Another simple but powerful truth is you can't give what you don't have. Strength, peace, joy, a sound mind, a restful soul. You can't give what you don't have. And you get those things by being what God's calling you to be and doing the right thing and following. What is that to you? Jesus says, you follow me. So whatever the rest of the world is doing, what is that to you? If they're spending the majority of their life chasing a dollar or chasing half-naked women at the club or persecuting other people so they can get ahead, or putting other people down so they can look good, what is that to you? You do the right thing. You be an alpha male. It's easy to do the easy thing. It's often hard to do the right thing, to do the alpha male thing. If being an alpha male was easy, every man would be an alpha male. Maybe this is a wake-up call. Maybe this is a reminder. We all need reminders from time to time. I need reminders every day. That's why I start my day with reading the Bible. I need that. I need the truth. We all need the truth. So let this be a reminder. You do the right thing. You stand up and be an alpha male. Whatever. Whenever. Do the right thing. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do and stop making excuses. With that, guys, this may not be a long episode, but I'm not one for fillers. I think that got the point across. And I hope that you guys found this episode useful. I do this podcast. If you guys don't know, I'll tell you how this podcast got started. Just a brief history segment, I guess, in the Alpha Male podcast. It started years ago. And I was volunteering with the Salvation Army. And I was also in the U.S. Army, and part of my job was teaching new soldiers. And part of their training they literally needed and that we taught them was resiliency training, to teach them how to be resilient. And I saw that echoed in the Salvation Army when I was volunteering with all these young men. And I still consider myself a young man at the time, but these men were generally younger than me. And I could see that they didn't have a positive, strong alpha male role model. And I'm not perfect, but I thought, God put me in this place. I can stand up and help them and try and pass on and strengthen other men. And that's how the genesis of this podcast got started, because there was a few men that went to that Salvation Army, but likely there were many more men out there where we could help each other and strengthen each other. And that's the genesis of this podcast. It used to only be a couple of times a year, but by the blessing and grace and charity of some listeners and giving, this has become generally, not all the time, but most of the time, a once a week podcast. And I know that the sound quality and editing is not great, but at least there is a microphone and editing. I used to just talk into the iPhone and upload it with no editing at all. So by that, I'm very thankful, and that's how this podcast got started. If you'd like to support this podcast for as little as $1, you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com. That's your one-stop shop. There's a Patreon link if you scroll to the bottom. But if you'd like to support for the fraction of a cost of a box of ammo or the fraction of a cup of coffee that you go out and buy at a store, if you think this message is worth getting out there, then please consider doing that. If not, listen for free and don't feel guilty about it. If you want to help for free, you can like, subscribe, and comment, and leave a review of the podcast. If you like this podcast, you may like a few others. If you care about the important stuff we talked about today, you may like Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. And if you like guns and gun stuff and hunting and tactical stuff, you can check out Gunfighter Life. It's about what it sounds like it's about. And again, if you want to check out more, if you're a visual person, you want to see some pictures of like me hunting buffalo or pictures of time of me in Iraq or stuff like that, you can go to Patreon. You can go to goodshepherdtraining.com. The link will be on there. A lot of Instagram pictures and stuff will be on there. goodshepherdtraining.com. Pretty simple to remember. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks, and have a blessed day.